Good evening. The deposed Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, died early this morning in Cairo. Doctors called his wife, Empress Farah, and 3 of his 5 children to his bedside last night when he suddenly began to hemorrhage. That was the direct cause of death. It was a side effect of the cancer that brought him to New York for treatment last October, inspiring the seizure of the U.S. Embassy and the hostages in Tehran 9 months ago.
The former Shah's Egyptian and French doctors have not yet released official details on the exact cause of death. Some medical sources say it was sudden hemorrhaging of an abscess in his pancreas. Others claim it was an infection in the lungs and other complications that caused death. At his bedside, when the ex-monarch died, the former empress, his 4 children, other family members, French and Egyptian doctors, and one of his American spokesmen, Mark Morse, who claims the deposed leader was lucid and alert almost to the end. Morse says the former Shah sensed death was near. And Morse, who helped him complete his memoirs 3 days ago, claims he did not die a bitter man.
He was bitter then.
Not bitter. He's never been bitter. He's never had a bitter word to say about anyone throughout this year and a half that I've spent with him, which I think is remarkable.
The Shah died in exile, but as NBC correspondent James Compton reports, his friend Anwar Sadat will give him a state funeral.
Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, once called King of Kings, Shah of Iran, Shadow of the Almighty, was a pale and haggard man, weakened by cancer when he came to Egypt in March. President Sadat said it would be the Shah's last home. He lived just 4 months, occupying one of the opulent palaces of Egypt's former king, Farouk. He never fully recovered from the infection and fever that followed removal of his spleen in Cairo. While he struggled for his life, officials issued optimistic bulletins, but a tomb was also being prepared in a Cairo mosque. Last night, a massive hemorrhage and soaring fever were the final fatal complications. Anwar Sadat announced the Shah would have a state funeral.
And he said, if anything happens to me, I want to be buried in Egypt. Well, we are fulfilling his wish, his will. He asked for a very simple funeral, but we are going to give all due respect to this man who has stood with Egypt in its difficult moments.
President Sadat was asked whether other Muslim heads of state would now be invited to the funeral. He said no. Should those who were not ready to help the Shah in his hour of need now want to come and pay tribute, they would be politely turned away.
Iran radio reported the death of the Shah this way. Music was interrupted and an announcer came on the air and said, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the bloodsucker of the century, has died at last. And outside the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, 2 jubilant armed Revolutionary Guards flashed a victory sign as they held up a newspaper proclaiming the Shah's death.